There is an idea that makes many people uncomfortable, yet it runs through generations, religions, and the histories of great fortunes. Wealth is not just a matter of capability. It is a matter of trust. Andrew Carnegie, even though he was a businessman and not a religious leader, understood something that also appears in ancient spiritual texts. Not everyone is prepared to sustain wealth. And not because of a lack of talent, not because of a lack of effort, but because the way of thinking is still incompatible with the weight of abundance. There is a type of mindset that repels money, not by bad luck, but by incompatibility. God does not entrust wealth to those who think small, act small, and decide from fear. This is not punishment. It is protection. Wealth amplifies everything it touches. It amplifies character. It amplifies habits. It amplifies intentions. If the mind is disorganized, money creates chaos. If the mind is selfish, money creates destruction. If the mind is unstable, money is lost. Carnegie observed that many men desired wealth but thought like walking scarcity. They said they wanted to prosper, yet made decisions based on fear, on insecurity, on comparison. And wealth does not flourish in soil made of fear. One of the most dangerous thoughts is this: if I have a lot, I will lose it. If I grow, others will envy me. If I prosper, something bad will happen. This mindset creates an invisible ceiling. The person may advance a little, but always self-adjust to avoid crossing that limit. Carnegie said there is no sustainable wealth where there is no emotional responsibility. God does not entrust abundance to those who panic when they receive a little more, nor to those who spend to prove their worth, nor to those who use money as emotional anesthesia. Another mindset incompatible with wealth is constant victimhood. The person believes everything conspires against them, that the system is unfair, that someone is always taking advantage. There may even be some truth in this, but those who live in this mental state surrender control. And no one entrusts resources to those who do not assume control. Wealth requires maturity to deal with injustice without becoming paralyzed, with frustration without quitting, with delay without losing discipline. Carnegie understood that men who complain a lot rarely build much, because a mind occupied with complaining is not available to create. Another dangerous thought: I deserve it, not in the healthy sense of dignity, but in the sense of automatic entitlement. When someone believes the world owes them something, they become irresponsible with what they receive. They spend poorly. They manage poorly. They decide poorly. God does not entrust wealth to those who cannot manage what they already have. Carnegie observed that people who waste small opportunities always ask for great chances. But the logic is the opposite. Those who honor the little build structure for the much. Wealth does not test your ability to earn. It tests your ability to sustain. Another sabotaging mindset is immediacy, wanting quick returns, instant results, urgent recognition. This type of mind cannot endure the time of construction. Carnegie built his fortune over decades, and he knew that haste destroys more wealth than mistakes. God does not entrust abundance to those who cannot endure process, because real wealth is process. It is repetition. It is consistency. It is not explosion. There is also the mindset of comparison, looking at others' progress and feeling envy, discouragement, or anger. That emotion consumes creative energy, while you compare someone else's building. Carnegie said that men focused on their own path advance faster than those obsessed with watching others. Another critical point: the relationship with authority. Many people want wealth but hate hierarchy, discipline, and rules. They cannot obey. They cannot learn. They cannot submit to processes. But wealth requires alignment with laws, natural, financial, and human. God does not entrust resources to those who reject order. And perhaps the mindset most incompatible with wealth is this: when I have money, then I will change. Carnegie knew this never happens. A person does not change with money. They are revealed. Those who are disorganized become more disorganized. Those who are generous become more generous. Those who are reckless become dangerous. That is why preparation comes first. The mind must grow before the bank account. Wealth is not a reward. It is responsibility. And when someone does not understand this, life holds back. Not out of cruelty, but out of coherence. God does not entrust wealth to those who think like victims, act impulsively, and decide without vision. But he does entrust it to those who develop character, clarity, and discipline, even when they still have little. Carnegie said that the true sign of readiness is not how much someone earns, but how they behave when no one is watching. And here is the question that closes this reflection, yet opens a transformation. If today you receive 10 times more than you earn, would your mind be ready to sustain it? If the answer is no, that is not condemnation. It is direction. Because wealth begins when thinking changes. And when thinking changes, the flow follows. Here is the accurate, natural English translation, preserving depth, flow, and intensity. So let's go deeper, because this is where most people stop, and this is exactly where transformation begins. When Andrew Carnegie spoke about readiness for wealth, he wasn't referring to intelligence, degrees, or sheer work ethic. He was talking about internal structure. Wealth doesn't arrive to test you. It arrives to reveal who you already are. That's why so many people make money and then lose everything. It wasn't bad luck. It was incompatibility. The mind didn't keep up with the volume. There is a silent principle that governs this. No one can sustain for long what contradicts their identity. If you see yourself as someone who merely survives, any form of abundance will feel strange, uncomfortable, almost threatening. And human beings always try to return to what is familiar, even if that familiarity is scarcity. Carnegie observed that many men said they wanted wealth, but hated responsibility. They wanted freedom, but rejected discipline. They wanted to harvest, but were unwilling to plant for long. That kind of mind cannot sustain abundance. God does not entrust wealth to those who confuse freedom with the absence of limits, because money without limits does not liberate. It exposes. Another essential point is how you deal with mistakes. People incompatible with wealth either run from mistakes or destroy themselves because of them. They blame themselves excessively, or they blame the world. Carnegie knew that prosperous men make many mistakes, but they make them in motion. They adjust. They learn. They continue. Wealth is not built by those who always get it right, but by those who do not freeze when they get it wrong. God does not entrust resources to those who turn mistakes into identity. Another mindset that blocks the trust of abundance is the constant need for validation. The person needs praise, needs recognition, needs someone to say they are on the right path. But most of the building happens in anonymity. Carnegie spent years working while no one applauded, while no one believed, while no one understood. Wealth requires maturity to walk without an audience. Those who act only when seen cannot sustain prosperity when watched. There is also the relationship with control. Many want wealth, but hate planning, hate numbers, hate organization. They live by improvisation and call it spontaneity. But abundance requires predictability. God does not entrust wealth to those who cannot manage routine, because great results are born from small decisions repeated, not from occasional grand impulses. Carnegie understood that wealth respects those who respect process. Another deep point. What you do when you have little reveals what you would do with much. If you waste time now, you will waste money later. If you ignore details today, you will ignore larger numbers tomorrow. If you run from small responsibilities, you will not sustain big ones. Life observes behavior in the small and responds proportionally. Wealth does not arrive as a leap. It arrives as an extension. It amplifies exactly what already exists. That's why the right question was never, "Why haven't I earned more yet?" The correct question is, "Who am I becoming while I wait?" Carnegie said that the man who works only for money will always be limited by money. But the man who works to grow his internal structure becomes impossible to ignore. And here is a point few accept. Wealth requires leadership, even when you don't yet lead anyone. Leadership over emotions, over impulses, over daily choices. Those who do not lead themselves are not ready to lead resources. God does not entrust wealth to those who are still prisoners of their own moods. Another mindset incompatible with abundance is aversion to the long term. Immediate minds want everything now. Prosperous minds think in decades. Carnegie planned in years, executed in days, evaluated in months. That balance creates solidity. Wealth that comes too fast for an immature mind usually leaves even faster. And perhaps the hardest truth of all is this. Not everyone who wants wealth truly wants the process that builds it. They want the result, not the repetition, not the boredom, not the invisible discipline. But God does not entrust wealth to those who cannot endure consistency, because consistency is proof of maturity. And all this leads to a final, decisive point. Wealth is not denied. It is delayed until the mind is ready, not as punishment, but as preparation. And if today you feel stuck, blocked, or constantly hitting the same ceiling, it may not be a lack of opportunity. It may be a silent invitation to grow inwardly before growing outwardly. So let's close this path by going even deeper, because here lies the part almost no one teaches, yet it decides everything. There is an invisible moment in every person's life when wealth draws near, and then retreats. Not because God changed his mind, but because the structure is not yet able to carry the weight. Andrew Carnegie understood that the greatest risk of abundance is not lack, it is the fall that comes after the gain. And life avoids unnecessary falls. That is why, before entrusting great resources, it tests in small layers. It tests how you deal with frustration. It tests how you react when no one recognizes you. It tests how you manage little time, little money, little influence. These tests are not random. They are diagnostic. Most people fail not because they make mistakes, but because they react poorly. They explode emotionally. They quit early. They act on impulse. They blame others. And those who react this way with little will react the same way with much, only with greater consequences. God does not entrust wealth to those who have not developed internal stability. Another decisive point is the relationship with silence. Immature minds need to speak all the time, to show, to prove, to justify. But real wealth grows in silence. Carnegie built while others spoke, while others explained themselves, while others sought validation. There is a phase in life when you must be quiet in order to build. And those who cannot endure silence cannot sustain growth. Another invisible test is coherence. You say you want to prosper, but do your daily choices support that? Or do you consume everything that comes in? Spend emotionally, neglect planning, ignore learning. Life responds to coherence, not to speech. Wealth does not obey words. It obeys patterns. Carnegie said that character is what remains when no one is watching. And that is exactly what determines whether someone is ready for more. There is also the test of delay. When results take time, what do? Most people quit, or change direction every week, or conclude, it wasn't meant for me. But wealth requires endurance over time. God does not entrust abundance to those who need constant reward in order to continue, because the process of building is long, and the mind must be even longer. Another point few people notice. Wealth requires the ability to retain, not only financially, but emotionally. The ability to sustain pressure, to sustain responsibility, to sustain expectations. Many collapse not because of a lack of money, but because of excessive internal pressure. Carnegie said that the greater the growth, the greater the need for self-control. And self-control is not born ready. It is trained in daily life, in small things, in repetition. There is also the test of intention. Why do you want wealth? To prove something? To seek revenge? To show superiority? These intentions contaminate the construction. Wealth built on ego is unstable. Wealth built on purpose is durable. God does not entrust resources to those who want to use money as emotional compensation. Another critical factor is how you deal with no. Every rejection reveals maturity. Some learn, others rebel. Carnegie knew that closed doors are part of the refining process. Those who understand this are not broken by rejection. Another profound point, the ability to serve before leading. Many want to command, but do not know how to serve. They want profit, but do not deliver value. True wealth is born from usefulness. The more people you help, the more resources flow through you. not because of abstract spiritual merit, but by practical logic. Money follows value delivered. And perhaps the most silent test of all is this. Will you do when no one is demanding anything from you? When there is no accountability? When there is no external pressure? When there is only choice? That is where readiness is revealed. Carnegie said that discipline without supervision is the true sign of greatness. And all of this brings us to the final conclusion. God does not entrust wealth to those who have not yet learned to trust themselves. The mind must be stable before the bank account. Character must be strong before abundance. Vision must be clear before expansion. Wealth is not a reward for desire. It is a consequence of alignment. And if today you feel that something still hasn't unlocked, that may not be a delay. It may be preparation. Because when wealth arrives for those who are ready, it does not destroy. It builds. And everything begins, as always, in the mind. So let us bring this to a close in the way this theme demands, with clarity, weight, and truth. Because after all of this, one thing becomes evident. Wealth is not denied by chance. It is entrusted with discernment. Andrew Carnegie understood that money is merely the messenger. It delivers power, responsibility, and amplification. And none of that can fall into unprepared hands without causing destruction. That is why God does not entrust wealth to those who think in ways incompatible with it, not to those who flee responsibility, to those who live in reaction, to those who act on impulse, to those who blame the world, to those who cannot sustain long processes, to those who want the result but reject the path. This is not punishment. It is coherence. Wealth does not transform anyone into something new. It merely reveals what was already there. If the mind is unstable, money creates chaos. If character is fragile, money exposes it. If vision is short, money disappears. That is why internal preparation comes before external abundance. Life observes how you treat little, how you deal with delay, how you respond to frustration, how you manage silence, routine, and repetition. None of this is wasted. Everything is evaluated. And here is the truth that brings all of this to an end. There is no, it's not the right time yet by accident. There is only, it is not yet aligned. When the mind matures, the flow changes. When character can sustain it, opportunity appears. When thinking expands, the limit dissolves. Carnegie said that the man truly ready for wealth is not the one who desires it intensely, but the one who can manage it with balance, even before possessing it. And perhaps this is the final question that truly matters. If today you receive more than you earn, more than you have ever had, more than you ever imagined, would it elevate you or destroy you? If the answer is not yet clear, that is not failure. It is direction. Because preparation is not the delay of the promise. It is the guarantee that when it arrives, you will not lose everything. Wealth is not a race. It is an alignment. And when thought, character, and discipline move on the same axis, trust follows. Not because you asked for it, but because you are ready. And that preparation begins now.